Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert on the economy to tell their stories and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as discuss potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. Today on the program, we're going to learn about the Canadian ship repair and construction company, Heddle Shipyards. Heddle Shipyards has operated shipyards in Canada for over 30 years with facilities across the Great Lakes. Heddle Shipyards is on course to be recognized as the most reliable provider of ship repair services in Canada. Joining us to give us an understanding of the Canadian shipbuilding industry is Shaun Padulo, president of Heddle Shipyards. Shaun joined Heddle Shipyards in 2017 and assumed the role of president in June 2018. Shaun's brought 10 years of experience in the marine and offshore contracting sector, starting his career as a deckhand on a tugboat sailing the Great Lakes. Shaun departed Canada in 2011 and held various commercial roles for Dutch firms working in the Netherlands, where he specialized in logistical management, as well as the transportation and installation of offshore production structures. Shaun has also lived and worked in Houston, Texas, focusing on offshore installation projects and offshore decommissioning projects and subsea inspection, repair, and maintenance projects. Shaun is an alumnus of the Erasmus University of Rotterdam. I hope I got that right. The University of British Columbia in Vancouver and McMaster University in Hamilton. Shaun holds a Master of Science in Maritime Economics and Logistics. Welcome to the program, Shaun. That is quite a resume. I'm amazed that you started as a deckhand. So I just, before we get into it, I want to hear a little bit about life as a deckhand.
Certainly, Jocelyn. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here today and to be part of the Canadian Innovators series. Being a deckhand, that was actually one of the most fun points of my career. So in high school and during university, during the summers, I had the opportunity to sail on board tugboats on the Great Lakes. I was doing a lot of runs from Hamilton down to Burns Harbor, so Chicago, and doing a whole bunch of different activities, salvage work and dead ship tows, and it was a lot of fun. You're basically on board of a ship with a whole bunch of different crew members. You become really good friends, and it's a great way to spend your summers, to be honest.
Well, I'm sure you've got great stories, but we want to hear about Heddle Shipyards today. So give us a little bit of history on Heddle Shipyards.
Certainly. Well, when you talk about great Canadian innovators, I'm fortunate enough to work for two of them. So the two owners of Heddle, Mr. Rick Heddle and Mr. Blair McKeel, are innovators. And if you look at Rick's history, it's really the history of Heddle Shipyards. He started the company when he was 18 years old, wow, which is pretty incredible. Today, we're the largest operator of shipyards on the Canadian side of the Great Lakes. He went from one employee himself to our peak is about 400. And so it's pretty amazing and remarkable. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg for us. And so the history of Heddle, 1987, the company gets started, one-person operation down in Hamilton Harbor, and slowly started to build up. And then Rick's partner, Blair, who wasn't the partner when he first started, saw an opportunity because Blair had a fleet of tugboats and barges and said, well, Rick's pretty good at fixing these things. Maybe we should partner. And so they did. And Rick, being the true MacGyver that he is, actually was a commercial diver in addition to running a shipyard operation, and salvaged a couple of barges. And he then turned those barges into what our first floating dry dock was. And so a floating dry dock basically sinks under the water and picks up a ship or a barge or a tugboat. And so with that asset, Rick started fixing Blair's fleet and also started fixing the fleet of other operators in the Great Lakes. And he did a good job, and his reputation started growing and growing. Flash forward a number of years, and 3 floating dry docks later in Hamilton to about 2012, Heddle expanded out to the East Coast and really took advantage of a lot of the offshore oil and gas opportunities that were going on at the time. And that propelled us even further, and we started looking at something called the National Shipbuilding Strategy. So this is an incredible government procurement that's been designed to rebuild the fleets of the Royal Canadian Navy and the Canadian Coast Guard. And so a lot of those vessels are larger than what we could handle in Hamilton. And so we started looking at different shipyards that used to be in operation in Ontario. And at one time, Ontario was the epicenter for ship construction in all of Canada. You had places like Collingwood, which was pumping out ships, Thunder Bay, and Port Weller. So in 2016, Rick and Blair decided to purchase the Thunder Bay shipyard.